Have you ever felt like you're running out of time? Like your life is just a brief flash in the grand scheme of things? You read in the Bible about Adam living for 930 years, Methuselah for 969, and you can't help but wonder, why not me? What happened? The answer is one of the most shocking and misunderstood truths in the entire Bible. In Genesis 6:3, God declared that man's days would be 120 years, effectively slashing our lifespan by over 800 years. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a divine reprogramming of our very DNA. Today, we're going to uncover the reason why God was forced to make this drastic change. This isn't just a history lesson. This is the secret to understanding the exact amount of time you've been given on this earth and the powerful purpose God has embedded within it. It's amazing how many people come here to seek these deeper truths, but a huge number of you who watch these videos every week aren't actually subscribed. If you feel that God is calling you to a deeper understanding of His Word, please take a second right now to hit that subscribe button. Don't let the algorithm hide these powerful revelations from you. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you will see your own life not as short, but as a perfectly calibrated, strategic gift from the Creator Himself. Well now, let's peel back the layers of tradition and get to the heart of who Adam truly was. Forget the cartoonish image of a simple, wide-eyed man wandering aimlessly through a garden. That picture, my friend, sells short the masterpiece of God's creation. The being God sculpted from the dust was anything but primitive. He was the pinnacle of human potential, a mind so brilliant it's almost beyond our modern comprehension. Imagine an intellect untouched by sin, unclouded by disease, and unburdened by the decay of time. A perfect hard drive with infinite storage, directly connected to the mind of its programmer. This was Adam. He walked with God in the cool of the day, Genesis 3:8, engaging in a level of communion we can only dream of. This daily fellowship wasn't just a casual stroll, it was a continuous download of divine wisdom. In His absolute sovereignty, God didn't just create a caretaker, He created a protege, an apprentice tasked with understanding the intricate tapestry of His creation. This man was designed for discovery, wired for wisdom, and possessed a capacity for learning that would shape the very genealogy of human knowledge for centuries to come. The initial plan for mankind's longevity was directly tied to this capacity for endless growth and understanding. Think about that monumental task God gave him, to name every living creature, Genesis 2:19-20. In our modern mindset, that sounds like a tedious chore, like labeling jars in a pantry. But it was so much more. The Hebrew concept of giving a name, Shem, isn't just about assigning a label, it's about defining the very essence, the core nature, the fundamental character of a thing. Adam wasn't just saying, "You're a lion, you're an eagle." He was performing the most profound act of biological and genetic classification in history. He looked at these creatures and with his perfect intellect understood their behaviors, their purposes, their inner workings, their divine genetics. He was in essence the world's first biologist, zoologist, and taxonomist, all rolled into one. Can you fathom the sheer mental horsepower required for that? This wasn't guesswork. It was an exercise in divine intuition and flawless observation, a testament to the mind God intended for humanity. It was a living prophecy of mankind's intended role as wise stewards of the earth, a role built on understanding, not just dominance. This initial display of intellectual power was just the beginning of a life designed for near-eternal learning and discovery, a life of incredible longevity. And then comes the masterclass in biological compatibility and divine genetics, the creation of Eve. This wasn't some afterthought or a mystical sleight of hand. It was a profound living lesson from the Creator Himself. When God put Adam into a deep sleep and formed Eve from his side, Genesis 2:21-22, He was demonstrating a foundational truth about life, connection, and the very fabric of our being. He showed Adam, in the most intimate way possible, that they were of the same substance, perfectly compatible, a literal one flesh. This was the genesis of genealogy, the starting point of the human family tree, established not by chance, but by a direct, surgical act of God's sovereignty. It was a powerful statement that humanity was designed for relationship, for partnership, and for a bond that transcended the mere physical. Adam's instant recognition, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," wasn't just poetic. It was a declaration of scientific fact from the first man, who understood the blueprint because the architect had just revealed it to him. This act was a cornerstone, setting the stage for the continuation of humanity through a divinely ordained pattern. Now, let's consider the dimension of time. Adam lived for 930 years, Genesis 5:5. Let that number sink in, 930 years. What could a mind like his, a mind that started at a level of genius we can't even measure, accomplish with nearly a millennium of lived experience? He wasn't just surviving, he was observing, learning, compiling, and understanding the world around him. He witnessed the turning of seasons almost 1,000 times, studied the stars, understood agriculture on a level that would seem magical to us. His extended longevity meant he was a living library, a walking encyclopedia of the pre-fallen and early fallen world. The knowledge he accumulated wasn't just for himself, it was the foundation for all who came after him. He was the ultimate patriarch, the headwaters from which the river of human knowledge and genealogy flowed. God's initial gift of longevity was a strategic part of his plan, allowing wisdom to compound in a single, perfect mind. Before being passed down through generations, this was no accident. It was a deliberate design choice by a sovereign creator. So, as we begin to grasp the sheer scale of Adam's intellect and the vast expanse of his life, a new picture emerges. He wasn't a primitive man, he was the blueprint of perfection, a being of immense intellectual and spiritual capacity. His life was the first chapter in the unfolding prophecy of mankind's journey. But this incredible combination of supreme intelligence and extreme longevity, a gift designed for a perfect world under God's loving sovereignty, would soon face the ultimate test. After the fall, this powerful combination would become a double-edged sword. The same capacity that allowed for a deep understanding of God's creation could now be turned toward purposes that defied it. This very foundation of knowledge, meant for glory, would set the stage for a civilization whose advancements would rise to heights we can barely imagine, but whose corruption would grow just as rapidly, twisting the gift into a curse. So picture this. With Adam and his descendants living for these incredible lengths of time, knowledge wasn't just passed down, it was amplified. You didn't just have one genius mind like Adam's, you had generations of them living at the same time. Seth, Enos, Kenan, the names in the genealogy of Genesis 5 weren't just tombstones. They were contemporary experts, living universities, walking the earth together for centuries. This created an exponential explosion of knowledge. It's why we see hints of a sophisticated society so early on, with Cain building a city, Genesis 4:17, and his descendants mastering metallurgy and music. Their astounding longevity wasn't for a primitive existence. It fueled a super civilization whose technological and scientific heights we can only speculate about. But here's the rub, the double-edged sword I mentioned, the very same longevity that allowed for this incredible accumulation of wisdom also gave evil an unprecedented opportunity to fester and grow. Think about it. In our world, a wicked person has maybe 50 or 60 years to do their damage. Now, imagine a brilliant but corrupt individual with 800 years to perfect their wickedness, build a corrupt empire, and spread their toxic influence through generations. The blessing became a curse because the human heart had fallen. Under God's permissive sovereignty, humanity explored its newfound knowledge, but without divine guidance, their advances in things like genetics and power became tools for corruption, leading to a world filled with violence. Genesis 6:11. This wasn't just a world with a few bad apples. It was a world where evil had become sophisticated, entrenched, and ancient. The corruption wasn't shallow. It had deep roots, a long and dark genealogy of its own. God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Genesis 6:5. The very fabric of his creation was groaning under the weight of this amplified sin. The situation was becoming untenable. The long-term experiment in human longevity and freedom was reaching a critical, catastrophic point. This set the stage for a divine response, a living, breathing prophecy of coming judgment that was ticking away, year by year, embodied in the life of one very significant man. Now, in the middle of all this rising chaos, God, in his infinite sovereignty, places a man who is a living, breathing countdown clock. His name is Methuselah. We all know him as the oldest man in the Bible, but there's a secret hidden in plain sight right in his name. In Hebrew, his name carries a stunning prophecy: his death shall bring, or when he dies, judgment will come. Can you imagine that? His father, Enoch, who walked with God, Genesis 5:24, was given a glimpse of the future, and he named his son accordingly. This wasn't just a name, it was a divine warning woven into the very genealogy of humanity, a ticking time bomb of grace. And what an incredible display of grace it was. Methuselah lived for 969 years, Genesis 5:27. This mind-boggling longevity wasn't just a biological anomaly. It was a profound act of divine patience. Every single year that Methuselah drew breath was another year God was holding back the floodwaters of judgment, giving that wicked world another chance to turn around. For nearly a millennium, his life served as a silent, powerful sermon on the mercy of God. He was a walking symbol of delayed judgment, a testament to a creator who is not willing that any should perish, 2 Peter 3:9, stretching out the time of grace far beyond what anyone deserved. Then the clock finally struck zero. The Bible's chronology shows us something breathtaking. The year that Methuselah died is the very same year the flood began. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a divine appointment. The moment the living prophecy was fulfilled, the judgment came. The end of his record-breaking longevity marked the end of an era. This demonstrates the pinpoint precision of God's timing and his ultimate sovereignty over human history. This cataclysmic event wasn't just about destruction, it was a hard reset, a strategic decision that would lead to a fundamental and permanent change in the human blueprint itself. So, after the world was cleansed, God initiated one of the most significant changes in human history. It's found in Genesis 6:3, where he says, "My spirit shall not strive with man forever. His days shall be 120 years. Now, many see this as a punishment, but look closer. This was a strategic reprogramming of human genetics, a cosmic security measure enacted by God's perfect sovereignty. The first reason was to limit the shelf life of evil. By reducing our longevity, God put a cap on the amount of corruption one person could accumulate and spread. No longer could a tyrannical genius have 900 years to build a wicked empire. The new design was a containment protocol for sin. Second, this was about managing knowledge. The antediluvian world proved that near immortality, combined with a fallen intellect, was a dangerous cocktail, leading humanity to the brink of self-destruction. This divine reboot acted as an antivirus, preventing corruption from becoming so permanently entrenched that it could never be uprooted. It forced a reset with each new generation, ensuring that no single wave of evil could completely overtake the human genealogy. It was a way of pruning the branches to save the tree, a measure to protect humanity from its own worst impulses and keep the divine plan from being irrevocably thwarted. Ultimately, this reprogramming wasn't just about limitation, it was about preservation. It was an act of mercy that made the long-term survival of humanity possible and kept the divine prophecy of redemption on course. By shortening the timeline, God was recalibrating the human experience for a new era. But this change wasn't like flipping a switch. It didn't happen overnight. Instead, God implemented this new operating system gradually, a controlled process of adjustment that we can see unfolding in the lives of the patriarchs who stepped out of the ark into a brand new world. Now, stepping into this new world, we see that God's plan to shorten human life wasn't an abrupt cutoff. Instead, he implemented a gradual, controlled, divine algorithm. If you trace the genealogy after Noah, you see it in the numbers. Noah lived to be 950, but his son Shem lived to 600, and just a few generations later, you see Abraham living to 175, Genesis 25:7. This wasn't a random decline, it was a masterful calibration of human longevity. In his absolute sovereignty, God was slowly turning down the dial, fine-tuning the human experience for a new era and a different set of challenges. It was a precise adjustment to our core genetics. Why do it this way? Well, this recalibration served a powerful purpose. It fundamentally altered the dynamics of civilization, making it much harder for the kind of long-lasting, deeply entrenched tyrannies of the old world to form. More importantly, it accelerated God's redemptive timeline. With generations moving more quickly, history itself began to move faster. The fulfillment of divine prophecy was no longer a millennium-spanning affair, but something that could unfold in a more concentrated period. God was essentially speeding up the narrative, pushing humanity forward on the path that would eventually lead to the cross. And most critically, this calibrated timeline was essential for purifying and preparing the messianic lineage. By guiding the generations in this more rapid succession, God was meticulously shaping the specific family tree, the sacred genealogy, that would lead to Jesus Christ. Each patriarch, from Noah to Abraham, was a vital link in a chain that was now being forged more quickly and deliberately. This wasn't just a broad adjustment for all of mankind, it was a specific and focused preparation for the arrival of the one person who would change everything, the fulfillment of a promise made all the way back in the garden. And this is where it all comes together, my friend. The calibrated longevity wasn't just a general plan, it had a laser-focused objective, the arrival of Jesus. When you open the Gospel of Matthew, the first thing you see is a genealogy. But this isn't some dusty family tree, it's a divine code. Matthew lays it out for us, 3 sets of 14 generations, Matthew 1:17. This perfect symmetry isn't a coincidence. It's a powerful statement of God's absolute sovereignty over the timeline of redemption. He wasn't just watching history unfold, he was writing it with mathematical precision. The number 14 itself is a hidden message. In Hebrew gematria, where letters have numerical values, the name David adds up to 14. By structuring the lineage this way, Matthew is making a profound theological point. Jesus is the ultimate son of David, the fulfillment of the messianic prophecy. To achieve this perfect pattern, the list even deliberately omits a few kings from the historical record. The point wasn't just about listing every single ancestor, it was about showing a divine pattern, proving that this was a curated and protected bloodline, a matter of sacred genetics. Do you see it now? The shorter human lifespan was the very engine that allowed these 42 generations to pass at the perfect, God-ordained pace. The reprogramming of our longevity after the flood finds its ultimate purpose right here. It was the tempo God set for his symphony of salvation. ensuring that Christ would be born at the precise moment in history he was always meant to arrive. Every decision, from limiting man's days to guiding this sacred genealogy, was a deliberate step on the road to the manger, proving that our time on this earth is anything but random. So, your life isn't a punishment. It's a precisely calibrated opportunity. The 120 years God allotted is the exact amount of time you need to fulfill your divine purpose. Now I have a question for you. How does knowing your time is a strategic gift, not a limitation, change how you will live tomorrow? Let me know in the comments below. Your testimony could be the encouragement someone else needs to see. If this message blessed you, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And don't go anywhere. Click the video on your screen now to discover the hidden spiritual secrets of the 7 days of creation.